we think it's all about the numbers or the next client or the next gig. We think it's about the growth and the sales, but it's about so much more than that. And let me explain what I mean by taking you back to the Brielle Elementary School playground. There I was, and there's groups of friends playing, laughing over there, and there's groups of friends playing hopscotch over there, and I'm over here, popping the heads off of dandelions, because I didn't have any friends. I was a bit of a know-it-all, and that didn't make me very popular. And by 6th grade, I was eating lunch with my teacher. But then a miracle happened in the form of a transfer student named Becca. And Becca had no idea any of my backstory. All I thought was, this is a potential friend, and I'm gonna make this happen. And so I get invited to the first sleepover I had had in years. And I know not everyone in this room has been a 12-year-old girl, but sleepovers are serious social capital. And I arrive on her doorstep, and I have my caboodle in tow, filled with blue eyeshadows, and she answers the door. And my stomach drops because she's holding this really large, hairy cat. And before the cat lovers judge me, I am not just, blink your eyes a little bit, allergic to cats. I'm not just a little runny nose allergic to cats. I'm can't breathe, covered in hives, allergic to cats. And so I had this moment where I had to think, am I gonna try to defy biology and go through that door, or am I gonna go home alone? Again. And so I said, I'm going in. And I walked through that door, and Becca turns to me and she says, Rachel, it's really important that you bond with Blueberry. Whew. I take a breath and I give the cat a little cautious hello. And we go upstairs to her room, and I'm sitting on the bed, and we've got Ward's Cherry Pie, I can't believe I just admitted that in public, playing in the background. And all the blue eyeshadows are ready to go. And Blueberry does what every animal does when it knows that you cannot get within 10 feet of it. He climbs on my lap. And in that moment, I think, whew, this is a win, I'm still alive. But then Blueberry decides to take our relationship to the next level. And before I could stop him, tongue outstretched, he licks my face, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And within moments, I look like Swamp Thing's child. I was whisked away by my parents, given a heavy dose of Benadryl. Now, I survived, but that friendship didn't. She was actually really serious about the Blueberry connection. And the reason I share this is because I was so desperate for human connection that I was willing to try and defy my own biology. And the truth is, we are all wired to want to connect. Every single person in here is wired for connection. And I was on a little show, we alluded to it before, called Married at First Sight. I don't know if we have any reality watchers in the room. Seasons 4 and 5. And I left the show, and I kept getting these messages saying, why did you leave? You were such a relatable expert. And I kept thinking, what does that mean? Why, through pixels and miles, are people feeling a connection to me? And so I don't believe in sample sizes of 1. And so I decided to research, what does relatability mean? What does that mean in terms of a translation from 1 to many and 1 to 1? And so after a master's degree, a law degree, 3 TEDx talks, hundreds of keynotes, and working with clients throughout the country for the last 7 years, I've recognized that relatability is a skill. And thankfully, it's one that we can utilize to build community in every single way. Relatability is the ability to easily connect to, communicate with, and inspire others and ourselves. It's beyond likable. Right? Likeable means that you can stand and work in close proximity with them. Likeable is small talk and small smiles. Likeable people are easy to talk to and kind of fun to be around, but that's usually as far as it goes. Relatable people, on the other hand, attract investments of time and energy. Relatable people make you feel seen, and you see yourself in them. Relatable people show you that that relationship means something, and it affects you like awesome by osmosis, either in what the relationship creates or who you become because of it. And the beauty is that relatability is something that every single one of us can start to use right now. A lot of speakers get to fit their teachings into some fun acronym like LEAD or SPARK or STAR, and I tried. But all I have is CACI. Connect, communicate, inspire. And starting with connection, We have to start with authenticity. And I know authenticity is the buzzword of the century, right? And it's lost so much meaning. But the truth is that we are different people in different situations, right? You're a different person here today than you are with your best friend of 15 years, or in the workplace, or with your spouse or your partner or your children. What I ask for is that you show up as yourself in those situations. Authenticity starts with what you think and feel and doesn't end with what others think and feel. We put on these masks and then all of a sudden we're not actually making connections. We're making connections with a person that doesn't exist. We put on these filters and what looks to the world like this is really just this. Blueberry shows up everywhere, gets in the way of things because we don't know if what we are actually connecting with is real or something that is filtered beyond recognition. And oftentimes, we are wanting to filter that because we think that we have to be perfect. And the truth is, what happens when you meet someone that you think is perfect? You get weird. All of a sudden, you start to compare yourself or boast or brag or pretend, and you are just not showing up as you are. And the truth is, you are great just like you are. And if we start to take away those filters and show those human moments, everything starts to shift. I think my favorite part of COVID was seeing people on Zoom in their elements. And all of a sudden you see a dog running by or a toddler or a cat. And you think, oh my gosh, it's not just me, it's not just my house, it's not just my dog, my cat, not my cat. But those human moments are what make us real. Those human moments are what make us who we are and allow people to actually see that this is somebody I want to build a relationship with, professionally, personally. We need to stop trying to be someone else for someone else. And there's two sides of authenticity in terms of connection. There's two ways. There's authentically showing up as you, but also authentically showing up with the truth. Is anyone married or partnered here? Just raise your hands. So have you ever had a near-death experience by either something you said or did or didn't do? So my husband actually had one of these the other day. He's not actually aware of this, but he almost had a near-death experience. So neither one of us are cookers. We are not adept in the kitchen. We don't pretend to be adept. But do you know what I'm really good at? Procurement. And I procure food like nobody's business. And I found this amazing Italian takeout, which is kind of cliche considering I live in New Jersey. But I find this amazing Italian takeout. I get the best chicken parm. And we bring it home, and we have this fantastic dinner. Family's all happy. And then the next day, I had one of those days. You ever have those days where every email is just a fire? Every child's calling with a catastrophe? It's just nonstop. I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm a little hangry, and I walk into the kitchen, and before I can open the door to the fridge, I see that takeout container, and it's empty and rimmed in sauce. I had saved that chicken parm and that homemade pasta ready to eat it that next day. And then before I could lose it and choose violence, Kevin says, I am so sorry, I did it, and I didn't mean to, I didn't think you were gonna eat it. Which might have been a lie, but it was based in the truth, and he took ownership for it, and is the only reason that he is still here this day. But the truth is, unfiltered truth, sincerely told, builds stronger bonds. The second part of effective communication is adaptability. It's all about reading the room. So my father played basketball. He played a lot of sports, but basketball was his main sport. And so he wanted a child who was capable of playing basketball in the worst way. And then he got me. And I am the least athletic person that's ever existed. I am just incapable of learning. And so he starts volunteering to coach for anywhere that would take him. He coached for middle school, he coached for AAU, he coached high school, he coached anyone that would give him a whistle. And then he's like, you have children. Maybe the DNA skipped a generation, maybe there's a chance. And so my son was very fast, but not really coordinated. And then my daughter arrives. And she is a spitfire and energetic, and she decides that eventually she wants to play basketball. And my dad says, I am coaching her team. And so he starts getting his playbook out. He's got Duke, he's got Kentucky, he's got everything ready to go. He's got the basketball fit, he's got the basketball mindset. And I walk with him into the gym, And I turned to him, seeing how excited and prepared he is, and I said, Dad, they're 5. Coach K walked in with a plan and left with a pivot that day. But how often do we need to pivot the way that we show up? How often do we need to pivot how we are presenting information? Because we have to read the room. Me-UE is just a mindset approach to every conflict that you have. When you have a conflict in front of you, you think, me. How am I showing up? Am I angry? Am I emotional? Am I sad? Am I tired? I am not someone to talk to when they're tired. It is not pretty. But how am I showing up? How is my physical, emotional, intellectual state, spiritual state showing up in this conversation so that I can resonate differently? And then I think about the you. You, whoever that person is. What is their state? What is their perspective? How can I put myself in their shoes, be more empathetic to understand what are they going through? Because they might have a completely different perspective on what is going on. And so I need to understand that. And then I think about the we. The we is the goal. Because there needs to be a goal to resolve that conflict. There needs to be a goal to resolve that situation. Because if there's no we, there's no need, right? But if there's a we, then all of a sudden I have an intention. How do I want this conversation to go? How do I want this conversation to end? What is the ideal ending? You might not end up there. But if you go into a conversation with an intention, with a purpose, with a we, and that background of understanding, things start to shift. How often as leaders do you walk in with a plan? You know exactly what you want done. You know exactly what needs to be done. You've got trajectories and numbers and spreadsheets. And then you have to pivot because the room doesn't exist the way that we imagine. We're not given perfect environments and perfect employees and perfect colleagues. We're given pivots in every direction. And so if we're going to communicate in a way that allows us to feel connected to our teams, if we're going to communicate in a way that allows us to lead in the way that people are going to want to follow, you have to be ready to pivot. I promise you, when your employees feel seen by you and heard by you and inspired by you and known by you, they will follow you to the ends of the earth. They will be the most loyal colleagues you will ever have. And all it takes is your effort. All it takes is your relatability. Thank you. You all have been amazing, and it has been my absolute honor to be here. Thank you. So it was July, and have you ever been to a conference in Vegas? Anyone here? I'm sure a lot of Southern Californians, we're in Vegas all the time, right? And so I was in Vegas in July for the first in-person event that I had been to since COVID. And my friend calls it POCO now, which I think is kind of awesome, but I'm not sure that we're actually through it, so we'll just go with like POCO. And so I'm in Vegas, and I get keys. We're at Caesar's Palace. And you know how in Vegas, everything seems like it's so close together. Have you ever like started to walk out of your hotel and you're like, it's right there. Like I can do this. It's right there. I can walk there. And then 3 days later, you're still not next door. So that's how everything works in Vegas. And I don't know if you've been to Caesar's Palace for a conference. Have you been? I'm seeing nods. Holy moly. So I wear a fitness tracker at all times so I can depress myself. And I decide to keep track of how far it is from my room to the conference center. And so I walked to the conference center, and it was about 1.2 miles to my room, from my room to the conference center to pick up my badges and say hi to everybody. And then if you want to add coffee to that, I realized it was another 0.3 miles, and it just wasn't worth it. So I'm leaving, picking up my badges, and I get back to my room 1.2 miles, and it's in heels. For the ladies out there who haven't worn heels in 2 years, 1.2 miles is legit. 1.2 miles in heels is not right. So I get back up to my room, and I go in my bag, and I got the badges and stuff, and again, ladies, like we know we can fit a lot of those things in our bags. and I'm trying to find my keys. And I was like, I don't have my keys. I don't have my keys. I always get 2, and I tend to lose them within the first 24 hours. I don't know why I don't just ask for 3 and leave them everywhere, like put them in my shoe, put them in my back pocket. And so I'm like, I just walked like 2.5 miles, and now I have to go find the front desk. So I'm walking. 3 miles later, I'm at the front desk, and I just go, and the guy looks at me, and he's like, are you okay? And I said, well, how much time do you have? And I'm just smiling at him like a goofball. And he's like, what's going on? And I said, this is the first time I've had to do this in 2 years. This is so exciting. I lost my keys for the first time in 2 years. And he's just like, okay, lady, go back 1.5 miles away from me. That's where I feel safer. But I realized I was so excited to be back, right? I was so excited. I hadn't lost my keys in forever. I mean, I lose my keys to my house in a while. Like, my fiance is like, no, we need one of those door pads because you'll lose everything. But I haven't lost my keys for years because we haven't been in person. And we need it. How many people here are so thankful to be back in person, see their colleagues, see their friends, right? It changes everything. It changes how we show up. It changes how we connect. Do you know that you are 34 times more persuasive in person? I mean, you're probably like, dude, I'm really persuasive on email. Like, you have not read my emails, Rachel. I'm sure they're amazing. But when you can get face-to-face with people, it changes. We've been so disconnected. And now to be back face-to-face, it changes the way that we're able to do business, the way that we feel. You end up happy that you just walked 16 miles, and it was a heat wave too, which who knew that happens in Vegas? But you're happy and you're thankful for that. And that's because we need connection. I'm gonna share a statistic that always makes me really pause, and I hope it does the same for you, in that 1 in 4 people have 0 friends. It was 1 in 10 20 years ago. That means that 1 in 4 people don't have anyone to talk to when things go bad. They don't have anyone to talk to when things are good. They don't have anyone to talk to when things are just meh, and I want someone to talk to. We are the most disconnected society, even though we have never been more connected. We have the ability to reach out to people at a moment's notice, but we are not connecting in a way that is meaningful and powerful. Our brains are actually really big. And in the animal kingdom, our brains are the largest in proportion to our bodies. And anthropologists, say that 5 times fast, they found that our brains are that big because we're wired for connection. Every single person in this room is wired to connect with other people. Yet we are not connecting in a way that's meaningful. We're not connecting in a way that allows us to build really significant relationships because we're allowing so many other things to get in the way. I love all this talk about AI. I am not sad that Sophia couldn't get out of Hong Kong and I had to be here today with you, because AI is awesome. And I think it's really helpful, but we will never replace humanity. And we'll never replace human connection. And we'll never replace the ability that we have to really build relationships. Because there's power in every time that we connect with another human being. There's a power in that. Not only does it lift us up, it lifts them up. We have a loneliness pandemic that can be solved by really starting to think about, what can we do differently? How can we show up differently? Everybody has the ability to say hello. It's a little video, just a montage of hellos.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello. 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 My name is Inigo Montoya.
Hey. Hello, Clarice.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olaf, and I like warm hugs.
Hello. How are you?
You had me at hello.
Say hello to my little friend.
All right, so obviously I don't want you to say hello like Al. But there's so many ways that we can say hello to each other. There's so many ways that we can start those connections, and you can definitely guess my age by the clips that I chose. I played that for a group of 1,000 18-year-olds a month ago, and they were all like, never saw that before. And I'm like, it's all right. They're worth it. Go back and watch them. But we all can say hello. We all can start the connection, right? And that happens oftentimes here at these conferences, in our workplaces, in our lives, in our personal lives. But what happens next? So I just want you to turn to somebody that you don't know, as well as someone maybe that's right next to you that you've been talking to, or maybe you came here with, and just say hi. Just say hi in a way, make some eye contact. All right. Do you guys feel that? Do you feel like how things start to, you start to feel this vibration happen in the room? You start to feel that connection. I love the sound of talking. I love it because it just means that people are making connections. It changes the way that you are, that your being entirely shifts when we start to make those connections, when we look someone in the eyes and we just say hi. So I talk about on TV and in real life sometimes, not as often nowadays, but I started in the dating space, and people are always like, how do I meet somebody? How do I talk to someone? What do I say? And I'm like, just say hi. Everything starts with that hello. But then what happens next? Because we can all say that. We can all start to make that connection, but then we have to create a relationship. And what I found is that we can become more relatable. People ask me, how did you come up with this idea of relatability? Obviously, I know what relatable meant in terms of a definition, but it became a purpose for me when I left Married at First Sight. So I don't know if we have any reality TV watchers in the room. You don't have to admit it in public. It's totally fine. But I was on a little show called Married at First Sight for 2 seasons back when it was on A&E, and then it switched to Lifetime. And I was like, wait, people die on Lifetime? That might not align with me as well. And so I left the show, and I kept getting these messages. I'd get them on Instagram DM and Twitter and my email, and they'd show up at my doorstep, because if people want to find you to tell you something, they find you. And so they kept saying, why did you leave the show? You were the most relatable expert. And so it made me think, and it gave me such pause, because I thought, what does that mean? Again, I know the definition of relatability, but what does it mean that made them say, I feel connected to this person that I've never met? They never met me. They're watching me through a screen. But they felt like they knew me. And so I took a moment. Actually, I took several years, because I don't believe in sample sizes of one. You ever do that? You make a wide, sweeping understanding based on one thing that happened or one type of person, like, I'll never hire someone from that school again. And so we make these sweeping judgments, but I don't want to do that. I want to say, how do people feel related to? How is someone relatable? And I started to study other people. And I started to think, how can I really condense this down, what I'm seeing with people that I find to be very relatable, into something that I can replicate? And that's when I discovered how you can become relatable. And we're going to go through it all today. Starts with connect, goes on to communicate, and lastly, inspire. Now, I get really jealous of speakers that have those fun acronyms, right? Like LEAD and SPARK, and they fit all of their teachings in. So you leave here and you go back home and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm totally doing SPARK. Well, I'm gonna let you guys know that all I have is Kakai. But I feel like Kakai works because it's so weird. It's like a dying bird, like Kakai. That's what you're gonna remember.
Hello.
But we're gonna start Kakai with the first C, which is connect. I want you to think about the first person that you met here. Whether it's this event, maybe it was a prior event in previous years,
and I like warm
that you
hugs.
felt initially connected to. Someone that you're like, oh my gosh, this is someone I want to invest some time in. Could be for business, could be for personal, could be for anything.
Hello to my little friend.
And I want to know what drew you to them. What was the thing that said, you know what, that is something that I feel compelled to engage in more? Because I guarantee it was not the person who brags about how much money they have, the clothes that they wear, doesn't brag about their achievements. I guarantee that it was someone that felt real to you. Anybody ever really feel when someone's not being themselves? Do you ever have those moments? You're like, whew. And you feel it. I went to this event, and it was for influencers, which is such a weird name. I know we use it, kind of have to just deal with it. But I went to this event with people that I had been connected with on social forever. I mean, forever in social years is, just a couple years I was following them, and I felt like I knew them. Oftentimes we follow people that we haven't met, and we're like, I get this person, like I am invested in them. And I sat down at this dinner that they had curated, and the woman starts talking to me to my right, and she introduces herself, and I was like, I have no poker face. So my jaw dropped, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's you? I had no idea who this person was. They were sitting right in front of me, and I had no idea who she was because she had been so filtered and so face-tuned and so distorted to the point where she was unrecognizable. It's a problem, and I'm sure a lot of people here have experienced this, when you're going through your feed and you're just kind of lazily scrolling and you're like, oh, do I know that person? And then you click on their name. Anybody have this experience? And then you click on your name, you're like, oh my gosh, that was them. Because we keep filtering out so many parts of ourselves. We start with our appearance because we live in a society that says that perfection is what we need to be. So we start to add filters and tune this and tune that and get the right angle and do all these things. But then we start to filter the rest of us as well. We see these highlight reels, we see these elements of people that aren't real. And we become unrecognizable in every way. And then we're not connecting. We've filtered out authenticity, even though that's what serves us the most. It serves us the most at work. It serves us the most at play. It serves us in every relationship that we have. So before I did this, way back in the day, I was a lawyer. And I actually did pretty well in law school. And I was able to get a summer associate position at this prestigious firm that had many leather-bound books and smelled of a rich mahogany. Thank you. And so I was in this firm, and it was just one of those places where they're like, we don't play hard, we just work hard. And they actually had a drink cart. This was one of the weirdest things. Can I tell you about this? They had a drink cart person who their only job, does someone have a drink cart? Am I gonna offend someone with a drink cart? Okay, the drink cart was great. But it was just bizarre. So every half an hour on the hour, they would drink cart down around all of the cubicles in the offices and hand people out caffeine. At one point, I was up to 17 Diet Cokes a day, and the fact that I'm still standing here today is actually pretty amazing. And it was just this bizarre place where I would get in the morning at like 8:30, and half of the lawyers were already on their second part of their day. And I know they wondered why I would sneak out around 6:30 when everybody's just really getting into that third section of the day. I didn't know if you knew, but lawyers' days are really split into 3 to 4 sections of 12 hours each. Do that math. They don't stop. I knew they wondered why, instead of working on a Sunday, I would take my work home, and I would do it over the weekend, instead of my other counterparts that were in the office 24/7. And I know they wondered why seemingly a 24-year-old was not as committed as the other people around her, as the other associates. And I knew they knew that I was hiding something. But I don't think they realized I was hiding this. I was hiding my 3-year-old son. I was 24 years old with a 3-year-old child. And I hid him. I worked there for 2 years, and I hid him. Because I was afraid if they knew that I loved something more than billable hours, they would hold it against me. I was afraid because when I would engage in conversations, and I never got too deep in it because I'm a really bad liar, again, not poker face, I would engage in these conversations and overhear people talking about their children and bragging about the fact that they didn't know their kids' teachers' names ever, that they barely knew how old their kids were. They weren't participating. So I was like, wait, how am I supposed to show up in this way? And so I pretended that I was the perfect candidate. And I did that by lying. But do you know how hard it is to hide a kid? It was a lot. So eventually they found out. They found out, and the problem was, it's not often the crime, but the cover-up. Because once you lose that, all of a sudden there's a distrust. All of a sudden there's an issue. And they might not admit it, and they still offered me a full-time job, but you knew that there was something slightly off. And that was on me, because I was afraid of being anything less than perfect. Do I have any perfectionists out here? It's okay, you're not alone. If you're like, I don't want to be perceived as a perfectionist because that's not perfect. It's a thing. We have this feeling as if we need to be perfect, but how many here expect other people to be perfect and to show up perfectly? No one. No one expects perfection, yet we feel as if we need to be perfect. And that is the most anti-relatable sentiment I could ever share. Because illusions of perfection will never create real relationships. Something I say all the time is, how can someone like you, love you, really want to work with you if they don't actually know you? And so oftentimes we hide parts of ourselves. And maybe you're not hiding a kid. Anyone out there hiding a kid? Want to talk to me? But maybe you're hiding something else. Maybe you're hiding parts of you that you're like, this feels too vulnerable. And this could be, every relationship is going to call for different levels of this. This is not my expression of just go share everything all the time. People have to earn your story. They earn your story. But it doesn't mean that we get to show up as fake. It doesn't mean that we get to show up as fake in our workplaces, in our friendships, in our romantic relationships. We have to show up in a way that allows people to see who you are, because it is a beautiful thing when you really get to the heart of someone. How many people feel more connected to me now that I shared parts of my story? It's a connector to start to share the stories that you have gone through. It's a connector to start to share the pieces of who you are and what makes you human, not Sophia. Our ability to connect is dependent on that. And so I just shared something that obviously is very personal. And it's taken me a moment to even want to share that, because I was like, they're going to judge me. And maybe we don't start with that level of vulnerability, but we have to start somewhere. And we have to start connecting in a way that allows people to really see who we are.